A very good morning, students. Welcome back to online classes on Java programming course. In our previous session, we have completed few concepts from your first unit. Uh, One is data types, and then we discussed about variables, and we have also seen the literals. Those are nothing but constants in a programming language. So in today's session, we said we're going to discuss about the scope and lifetime of a variable. Okay, so quickly I will move my attention towards that concept so that we'll have some idea. So quickly, yeah, scope and lifetime of a variable. So generally, scope means the area or the time period or the lifetime of a variable. I mean, how long you can access a particular variable after its creation. Okay, you have created a variable, until what extent you can access, I mean till what extent the variable is available, till what extent the variable is alive for the access. So these things are nothing but we call it as a scope. So generally scope is defined with the help of blocks. Block is nothing but a compound statement. We have studied about it in your C programming language. A block is nothing but it is a compound statement. It will have more than one statement, a collection we can say. So in order to create a scope in our programming, or in order to define a scope in our programming, we are making use of a block. So block is nothing but how we are creating the block in our programming, simply with the help of curly brackets, isn't it? Opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket. So we put all the statements between these curly brackets. So we call this entire set of statements as a block. Okay, hopefully you understood what I mean by a block. So using this block, we are creating scopes in our programming. So when you are starting the curly bracket, opening curly bracket in your programming, so this is the beginning of a scope. This is a beginning of a new scope. And when you are closing the curly bracket in your programming, this is the closing of a scope. This is the closing of a scope. So over here the scope will start, and over here the scope will end. And if suppose you are creating a variable within this block, let us assume here we are creating a variable like int a. So now what will happen? The variable lifetime or the variable existence will start from this point where you are declaring and defining the variable. From that point onwards, the variable existence will start. And where it will end in the sense, immediately where you are closing the block, where you are closing the scope. At that point, the variable will be destroyed, or the variable will become unavailable. So this is the concept of scope, and the lifetime is in short how long a variable is available. Okay, from its creation, how long the variable is available, that is nothing but the lifetime of a variable. So Java allows variables to be declared within a block. So unlike your structural programming C, where we are having a declaration section, and in the declaration section only we have to declare all the variables. Declaring the variables in your code, I mean internal to the code, it is not possible, isn't it? You have to do the declaration at the declaration section only. All variable declarations or all variable creations you have to do in the declaration section only. It is not possible to create the variables inside the code, inside the actual logic. But when it comes to Java programming, it is purely allowed. You can create a variable at any point in your program. There is no compulsion that you have to do in the declaration area only, declaration section only. You can do the declaration of variables at any point in your programming. Okay, later when we do the actual coding, there you will understand how it will goes. Okay, so the definition of a block I have already given. A block is begin with an opening curly bracket and it will end with a closing curly bracket. So what we are doing in order to create a block, here I have shown already, we are using an opening curly bracket to create a block, I mean to start a block, and to end a block, what we are doing, we are using a closing curly brace. Opening curly brace and closing curly brace. These two things are used to create a block. So a block is nothing but it defines a scope. It defines a scope. Scope is nothing but an area, a location, okay, a region we can say. Thus each time you start a new block, you are creating a new scope. So basically whenever we are opening a curly bracket in our programming, so you may get a doubt, so can we open a curly bracket without any control structure? It is not possible, isn't it? In programming, we can't simply open a curly bracket and we start writing the code. It is not at all possible. Definitely whenever you are creating a block, whenever you are creating a new scope, you need to depend on a control structure, and our control structures are nothing but our decision making statements or iterative statements. Your if else, nested if, okay, switch case, if else ladder, all these things are your loops: while loop, do while loop, and for loop. So using these control structures, we can create blocks of code in our programming, and those blocks are nothing but the scopes. Whenever you are starting a new block, you are creating a new scope in your programming. Okay. A scope determines what objects are visible to other parts of your program. So inside a scope, if you're limiting certain objects, if you're limiting certain variables, what will happen? Those variables will become unavailable to other parts of the program. Okay, to other parts of program. So it also determines the lifetime of those objects. I mean, how long those objects will exist. Okay, how long those objects will be available. This is also defined by the scope only. So that's the reason whenever we are talking about a scope, we not only think of the region, the area, but also think of the lifetime of the objects. Okay. So a scope determines what objects are visible to other parts of the program and also determines the lifetime of the objects. So in Java, the two major scopes are class scope and method scope. Okay, class scope and method scope. We have scope that is defined by a class and scope that is defined by a method. So two different types of scopes we are having in Java programming. So a class scope, the scope defined by a method, begins with its opening curly bracket. So whenever we are writing a method, method is nothing but a member function. Whenever we are writing a method, we are using the opening curly bracket. Immediately after the method name, we use the opening curly bracket. So that is the beginning of the scope, method scope. That is the beginning of the method scope. If that method is having certain parameters, if you are passing the parameters to the method, parameters are nothing but inputs to the function, inputs to the method. So if you are passing certain inputs to that method with the help of parameters, those parameters will also become a part of what we say uh, uh, part of the method. Okay, part of the method scope. So let us take an example over here. I'm writing a method with name example. Example is my method name, example, and this method is having two parameters, int a, int b, like this. So now inside this method, what I am doing, I'm declaring another object that is int c. So like this. So after this, I'm writing some code and then I'm closing. So now how many objects I have, how many variables I have in this particular method example, in the sense three variables, a, b, and c. And all these methods, I mean all these variables are local to this method, isn't it? The scope of these three variables is limited within this within the scope of this method example. So the lifetime where these variables will start existing, in the sense when where they have created, I mean a, b, c, from the beginning of the method you can access all these three variables. Their lifetime will start from the beginning of this method, and where they will die, I mean where their lifetime will end. Ending lifetime is nothing but they will die, isn't it? So where these three variables will die in the sense at exactly this closing bracket, where you are having this closing bracket, at that point only these three variables A, B, C will die. So the availability of A, B, C is limited to this block, limited to this method scope. Okay, this is about method scope. Okay, variables declared inside a scope are not visible or accessible to the code that is defined outside that scope. So suppose if I'm writing some portion of code after the method, can I access these variables over here? Not possible, because they are these these variables, these objects, they are limited to this block of code only. Okay, this scope only. Outside the scope, if you try to access them, what will happen? You will get errors, you will get issues. Okay, your compiler will give an error that these variables are unavailable at this location, undefined at this location, at this point. Such kind of errors you will get. Okay, so the next thing is when we declare a variable within a scope, we are localizing that variable. Okay, we are localizing that variable and we are protecting it from unauthorized access or unauthorized modification. So if you are declaring these three variables within this example method, so unknowingly what you are doing, you are giving a kind of protection to these variables A, B and C. You are giving a kind of security to these variables. Okay, the reason, if you try to access these three variables outside the method's scope, simply you are getting issues. That means you are unable to access those variables. You are unable to access those variables outside the method's scope. So you are unknowingly you are protecting these variables. You are providing a kind of security to these variables. Okay, security from unauthorized access and security from unauthorized modification we are giving to these variables. Hopefully you understood. So this is something about the scope and lifetime. So this scope, it can be nested. Nesting means having a block within another block. Okay, having a block within another block. So let me give you the clarity on this one. So let us say I'm having one block, outer block. Okay, with some control structure, I have written one block, the outer block. Okay, and inside this outer block, I'm taking another control structure and I'm making that block as inner block. Inner. So now these two blocks over here, if you see, the inner block is nested inside the outer block. So whatever inner block you are having, that is nested inside the outer block. So let us assume here I am declaring one variable int x. So within inner block I am declaring another variable int y. Okay, so now where the lifetime of x will start, where you have created, at that point only the variable x lifetime is going to start. So at this point only the variable x lifetime will start, and where exactly it will end in the sense over here, because the variable x is inside the outer block. So where the outer block is closing, at that point the x variable will be destroyed, or the lifetime of x variable will end. So here the x lifetime will start, x start, and here the lifetime of x will end. So x end. So what about y? Where it will start? So where exactly you have created, at that point the y will start, and where exactly it will end in the sense, as it is declared and defined within the inner block, so its lifetime, the y's lifetime will end at this closing curly bracket. Over here the y will end, y ends. So like this you remember. Over here x starts and here x ends, and here y starts and here y ends. Very clear, isn't it? Suppose if I'm writing some statements over here within the inner block, if I'm writing some statements within the inner block, and in these statements if I try to access x, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So whatever variables you have declared inside the outer block, your nested block can access those variables, because the nested block is the part of your outer block, and whatever variables you have declared inside the outer block and trying to access inside the nested block, you can access the complete access rights you are having over here. So X you can access over here. At the same time, at the same point, if I want to access Y, can I access? Yes, I can access, because Y is internal to the nested block and I am trying to access the Y internal to nested block, so it is completely possible. Completely legitimate statement. Suppose if I want to access X after the inner block, is it possible? Yes, I can, because still the Y lifetime is not ended and it is still existing, so you can access X without any issues. But can I access Y over here? At this point, it is not possible, because Y is ending when you are closing the nested block. At that point only the Y's scope is ending, so you cannot access Y over here. So simply forget about accessing the Y over here. Ultimately, you will get an issue over here. Okay, so all the variables declared inside the outer block you can access inside the nested block, but the same thing in reverse is not possible. The variables declared inside the nested block, and if you try to access those variables inside the outer block, it is not possible. Doing so is an error, is an issue in our programming. So quickly we go and we see what sort of statements we have over here. Okay, so scopes can be nested. For example, each time we create a block of code, we are creating a new nested scope. Ultimately, all the control structures we can use within a method only. So whenever you are using a control structure within a method, in short, what we are doing, we are creating a new scope. We are creating a nested block only. Okay, so when this occurs, the outer scope encloses the inner scope. Inner scope will become the part of outer scope. So that means whatever objects you are declaring inside the outer scope, they will become, they will be visible. They will become visible, or they will become available to the code within the nested block, to the code within the inner scope. The reverse is not true. Here what he is saying, the reverse is not true. That means inner scope variables you cannot access inside the outer scope code. Okay, outer scope variables you can access inside the inner scope code, but inner scope variables you cannot access inside the outer scope code. So this thing you have to remember. Objects declared within the inner scope will not be visible to the outside. Okay, this thing you have to remember. So this is something you can see over here. The same example I am showing over here. X I am declaring, X I am initializing, and I am trying to access the X. This is my inner scope and this is my outer scope. Okay, outer scope. I am trying to access X, which is declared inside the outer scope, inside inner scope. So here I am accessing X. So this is completely valid. I can access X over here. Okay, so Y, which is declared inside the inner scope, I'm accessing inside the inner scope, so no issues. But when it comes to this particular statement, here what I'm doing, I'm accessing X, which is declared inside the outer scope, and I'm accessing inside the outer scope, so it is completely valid. But if I write another statement over here, like system.out.println of y is, if I try to print like this, y is colon plus y, so what will happen? This y I cannot access over here. Accessing this y is an error, because this y is declared within the inner scope, and I'm trying to access that y inside the outer scope, so definitely you will get an error over here. Okay, that's the reason I did not put this statement over here. So if you try to code from here to here, and if you execute this program, you will get the output without any issues, without the inclusion of this particular statement. And if you include this statement, you will get an error that y is undefined. Okay, at this point y is undefined. You will get such kind of such type of error. Hopefully you understood. So next important concept that we have to focus, that we have to learn, is type conversion and type casting. This is one of the important concept, and many times they ask this question inside LAQ for like 7 marks uh, many times. Okay, so it is an LAQ, long answer question, and the weightage, I mean the marks allotted for this question is 7 marks. Okay, long answer question, remember this one. So type conversion, type casting, it is a very important question. So generally what exactly this concept, where exactly we need this concept, in the sense whenever we do the initialization, whenever we use the assignment operator, whenever we do the assignment operator in an expression, there comes the concept of type conversion and type casting. So assignment operation between mixed type of variables or mixed type of literals. Okay, if you use the assignment operator between double and integer, if you use the assignment operator between character and integer, character and byte, likewise if you use different types of variables or different types of constants, there comes the concept called type conversion and type casting. Okay, and this type conversion and this type casting, it is of two types. One is implicit type conversion and the other one is explicit type conversion. I will give you some brief idea about this concept. Afterwards we will see step by step over here. Okay, first of all we need the idea of where exactly we need this type conversion and type casting. So quickly I will go to the whiteboard. So take the example. So let us say I'm writing one simple statement over here. Integer a is equals to some 2. Okay, a very normal statement I have written. A is equals to 2. So now I'm declaring byte b. So then what I am doing, b is equals to a. B is equals to a. So over here what I have done, a is a variable of type integer, b is a variable of type byte. Two different types of variables I am having. So then what I am doing, I am initializing b with a. Okay, initializing b with a. So whatever content I have inside a, that same content I want inside b. So what I am doing, b is equals to a. Is it a valid statement? First of all, we have to think in that way. Is it a valid statement? Is your compiler going to allow this type of initialization? Okay, I mean, if it is, then what are the rules? Whether after the conversion, whether the type, I mean the value 2, whatever I have inside a, it will remain as it is, or is something is going to happen with this value? Is some change is going to happen with this value? That kind of thing we have to focus. So first of all, you remember that whatever initialization we are doing over here between two different types, okay, so this type of initialization wherever you are having inside your code, there comes the concept of type conversion. Okay, there comes the concept of type conversion, and this type conversion, it is of two types. One is implicit conversion or auto conversion. Implicit or auto conversion. Auto conversion. And who will do this conversion? In the sense, your compiler itself does this conversion. The responsibility of compiler. We are not going to do anything over here. The responsibility, I mean auto conversion or implicit conversion, it is the responsibility of the compiler. Okay, then we have explicit, the second type of conversion, explicit conversion, and we call this conversion as casting. Explicit conversion or casting. Okay, and this explicit conversion, when we are saying explicit, your compiler will not do it. Okay, we as a user, we have to do it. We as a programmer or we as a user, we have to perform the explicit conversion, that is casting. Okay, so based on what we are going to decide, I mean based on what the compiler is going to decide whether it has to perform implicitly or it has to leave that conversion process to the user, means based on the conversion rules. We have certain conversion rules